Hey there, welcome back to Featherwood Farm. We're back in the cottage garden in the raised bed area, and I'm gonna get them all cleaned up. Tomato plants are done. I have some bolted lettuce here. I haven't harvested potatoes. I am not expecting a very good harvest. The plants got eaten a couple times by deer early on in the season, and the soil in that bed wasn't that great. Wasn't as well draining as I was hoping. So we're going to harvest the potatoes, what we have, harvest the last few peppers, and I have some carrots as well that I need to get out. And then going through and topping off all of these beds with some of the farm-made compost that I have. I should have enough to get all, 12 beds? Yes, it should have enough to get all 12 beds topped off a little bit, especially these new ones that I set up this year, because the soil that I put in them did not contain much compost whatsoever. So those will be the top priority. I did already come through here and get all of the paths weeded and mulched with a thick layer of the wood chips that I got from Chip Drop. The chickens are, helping scratch some of that up, but it's looking pretty good. Oh, and behind me here are the heirloom chrysanthemums. So there are 4 different varieties in here. I could not tell you the names right offhand. I will figure those out and post them on the screen. But they're absolutely lovely, and I've harvested this variety. This one was the first to kind of start blooming and opening up, and it's been, I want to say, close to 10 days now, maybe it's just a week right now, and they still look amazing in the vase. I'm going to come through and harvest these ones fairly soon, as well as these ones, and then there's another variety over here that's a lighter color. So yeah, despite getting nipped by the deer earlier, they really seem to be doing well. Lots of flowers per stem, really, really long vase life. They handled the first night of frost. It's just the flowers that you would have to worry about in the first frost, but I was actually out of town and didn't get them covered. But they handled it just fine and still look great, so that's really exciting. So this is the one bed that I'm not really going to do anything with today. I'm going to wait till they kind of peter out and keep them around as long as I can. Looks like I do still have some tomatoes here. These Candy Bell grape tomatoes, they produced really well this year, and there was very minimal splitting, which was nice. I think I will continue with this variety next year. Now, I'm just going to cut these off at about ground level and leave the roots in place. And this twine that I used is just a natural burlap twine or whatever it might be made out of. So that'll just rot away. I can compost that. So as far as the varieties that I grew this year, 4 of them were grown from fairly old seed packets that I had for several years. And those would be the white tomasol, Oma's orange, German pink, and speckled Roman. The speckled Roman did okay. That is Roman tomato, obviously paste tomato there. The other 3, not great. I don't know if that had to do with the age of the seed. The plants themselves weren't that vigorous, or maybe it was other conditions. Like, again, this is that soil that I got this year that had no compost in it, and I tried to amend it, and it might just not have been enough for them. I also grew for the first time Harvest Moon, Strawberry Fields, Tyron, and the Candy Bell. The Candy Bell or the grape tomato, definitely grow those again. Harvest Moon were a fun one. They're a slicer. They were kind of multicolored, a little bit lighter when you sliced into them. They were really pretty. The Strawberry Fields were a small slicer, also looked really nice on the vine, in groups, didn't get very big. And then the Tyron were another paste tomato, and those did really well. Actually, all 4 of those did decently well, and I would grow them again in the future. Maybe not the Harvest Moon, because that was mostly just for fun, just a playful choice. But the others, I think I will in the future grow. These are all cottonwood seedlings. That was the big pest this year. Okay, so I'm gonna top dress this bed with a couple inches of compost, and I don't really have to worry about mixing it in. That's not necessary, but my chickens are gonna do it for me anyway, a little bit to some extent. And this compost is made from the chicken manure, chicken bedding, duck bedding, goat manure and bedding, as well as some plant debris, probably some grass clippings in there. That's probably it. Maybe a few other things. I just keep this kind of open air composting in the pen with all the animals, and so the chickens love to actually scratch through it, which is really good for it. And I also come through, I want to say maybe every couple of weeks in the summer when it's quite warm, and turn it with the tractor. But this is by no means the quick method. Mine is very slow, and so it takes longer for it to break down. And actually, it's not entirely broken down, although this year might be the best of any year, or at least the furthest broken down of any year. Guess that could be attributed to the fact that we had a much longer season, or maybe I did a better job of turning it this year. Who knows? But the chicken manure is good to put on a garden bed after letting that break down for 30 days. So that's safe. And the goat manure is safe basically right away. They're just kind of little pellets. They don't have like that harsh burn of nitrogen that like a cow manure or a horse manure would have. It doesn't need to break down for as long. So this stuff that I'm putting on here has been breaking down for about a year. That's the process that I kind of do. I keep 2 piles going, and in the autumn when I top dress beds like this, then that finishes off the oldest pile. I quit on this year's pile, start a new one, and then this year's pile will be left to sit and decompose and become next year's top dress. I should also add that I don't add any kitchen scraps to this particular compost. I don't want to encourage the pests because, like I said, this is just kind of open. I do have a barrel that I will add some stuff to. The amount that produces is completely insignificant. Plus, the chickens and the goats get the majority of the kitchen scraps anyway. Okay, we have 1 bed done. I will come through later with scissors and take these out from the top. All right, so this is our pepper bed, and we're gonna harvest these. Some of them look like they might not actually be good anymore. They got a little too cold. These are those lunchbox peppers. Absolutely amazing performing plants and really delicious. Just to snack on. Honestly, I think that's how I ate all of them this year, was just snacking on them. But these definitely will grow again next year. I didn't grow any hot peppers this year because I don't like spicy stuff particularly, and they don't sell well in the farm stand. So it would seem many of my neighbors also don't prefer spicy stuff. And I'm doing the same in this bed that I did in the tomato bed, and just cutting the plants off at ground level, leaving the roots in the soil. That way you're not disturbing kind of the ecosystem underneath the soil, and that'll just break down and decompose with no issues. Oh. So, I've got a few bell peppers still. That's nice. So it's interesting to note this bed has my own farm compost in it that I put in last year, in addition to the soil that I brought in and filled them with. That also had a good percentage of compost in it. And the structure of it is a lot better than these other beds. And also it has a lot less weeds in it. And all of these beds were mulched with straw in the same manner, and if anything, the one with the tomatoes was more densely planted because I also had lettuce growing in there. So yeah, just an observation. It's just crazy the amount of peppers on this plant. I mean, I harvested these fairly regularly, and they just kept pumping them out. And they're not very large plants either, you know, maybe 2 foot tall. Oh. Okay, so we're in the potato bed now, and like I said, I'm not sure how well this harvest is going to go, how good it's going to be, which would be unfortunate because last year my harvest wasn't great either because there was a big wireworm issue in the bed, and wireworms kind of hit anything that's tuberous. So potatoes, dahlias, that's how I lost some of my dahlias last year as well. They just eat right through them. And so I was able to salvage them for myself, but it meant that I couldn't really sell any, the ones that weren't too heavily damaged. But you can see these ones are still even a little green. So not a fully ripe potato there. And when you're harvesting potatoes, you have to be kind of careful with the implement you use. You don't want to pierce them. So I just go through gently. Oh yeah, I mean, these are crazy misshapen and very small. So this is my potato harvest from 12 plants, which is absolutely pitiful. I mean, normally this would be the amount from like 1 to 2 plants, and a lot of them are quite small. Did get a couple good size potatoes in there. One thing that I did notice though is that on this side the soil is a lot harder and had a lot more clumps, definitely not that well draining, and it got a little bit better towards that side. So that's just interesting because yes, this side was barely anything in it, and they were all very small coming from over here, and they got larger and a little bit more numerous towards that end of the bed. So I kind of went through with the cultivator and tried really breaking that up down there, and then hopefully with the application of the compost and building this soil health up, getting you know, some more life in it, it will be better next year. But I will know not to put potatoes in this bed next year for sure. One good thing that I did notice is that there was little to maybe none wireworm damage on the potatoes. I still have to go and, you know, brush them all off and I'll get a better look, but if there is damage, it's significantly less than what there was last year, so that is good. Because barring treating the soil with some form of a pesticide, I don't know how I would actually get rid of the wireworms. I don't have them horribly, and they're not everywhere. And when I do find them, I feed them to the chickens because they absolutely love them. If you don't know what they are, they're maybe like an inch or so long, this kind of burnt orangish red color little worm. Yeah, and you'll just dig them up in the soil. So this bed is now ready for the compost to be added to it, but before I do that, I'm going to go through and clean up the rest of the beds first, do that step. So we're going to go harvest the carrots because that should be the last food item to harvest, and then we'll pull everything out, and then I will come through and add the compost. Monster carrot, tiny carrots. And here's our carrot harvest. I am sure that there are more in here where the tops just got eaten off or scratched off, who knows. You know, much like this one, just sort of happened upon it. These are some ranunculus corms that I must have missed. Oops.